Maya never thought much about her appearance before that day. She was the kind of person who threw on whatever was clean and comfortable, pulled her hair into a messy bun, and headed out the door. Life was simple. She had a job she loved at a small design studio, friends who made her laugh until her stomach hurt, and an apartment that overlooked the park where she jogged every morning. That Tuesday started like any other. She grabbed her coffee, kissed her cat goodbye, and drove to work singing along to the radio. The intersection was one she'd crossed 1,000 times. The light turned green. She pressed the gas pedal. Then everything exploded. Later, the police would tell her that the other driver had been texting. He ran the red light at 50 miles per hour and slammed into the driver's side of her car. Maya didn't remember the impact. She didn't remember the sound of metal crushing or glass shattering. What she remembered was waking up to blinding pain and the smell of something burning. It was her. She was burning. The details of those first few days blurred together in a haze of medication and agony. There were surgeries. So many surgeries. Doctors used words like third-degree burns and skin grafts and extensive scarring. Maya heard them talking, but their voices sounded like they were coming from underwater. Her mother held her hand and cried. Her father stood in the corner looking lost, like he wanted to fix everything but didn't know how. The burns covered her left arm from shoulder to wrist, crept up the side of her neck and touched the edge of her collarbone. When they finally let her see, she wished they hadn't. The person in the mirror wasn't her. This stranger had angry red skin, textured and uneven, stretching across her arm like a terrible map of somewhere she never wanted to visit. The doctors said it would fade with time, that the redness would calm down, that the texture would smooth out a bit. But even in their most optimistic predictions, the scars would always be there, always visible, always a reminder. Physical therapy was its own special kind of torture. The therapist was kind but firm, pushing Maya to move and stretch and work through the pain. The burned skin was tight, restricting her movement. Every exercise felt like her arm was being torn apart all over again. But she did it anyway, because what else could she do? Give up, let the accident win? 3 months after the crash, Maya returned to work. She'd chosen her outfit carefully that morning, trying on 6 different combinations before settling on a black turtleneck despite the warm weather. Long sleeves, high neck. Nothing showing. Her co-workers welcomed her back with a banner and cake. They hugged her carefully like she might break. They said things like, "We're so glad you're okay and you look great," with voices that were just a little too cheerful, smiles that were just a little too wide. Maya could see the questions in their eyes, the curiosity about what was hidden under her clothes, but no one asked. They were too polite for that. The pity was worse than any pain she'd felt in the hospital. She made it through the day on autopilot, sitting at her desk, moving her mouse, pretending to focus on designs that suddenly seemed meaningless. When 5 o'clock finally came, she practically ran to her car. That's when she saw him. A guy from accounting whose name she couldn't remember. He was getting into the car next to hers, and he did a double take when he saw her turtleneck in the heat. "Aren't you hot in that?" he asked, friendly and casual. Maya's throat closed up. "I'm fine. It's like 80 degrees out." "I'm dying and I'm just in a t-shirt." I said, "I'm fine." The words came out sharper than she meant them to. The guy's smile faltered, and he quickly got in his car without another word. Maya sat in her own car and cried. She cried for the girl she used to be, the one who didn't think twice about wearing tank tops in summer. She cried because she knew this was her life now. These careful calculations about what to wear and how to sit and which arm to use for things so people wouldn't stare. Summer was the hardest. While everyone else wore sundresses and shorts, Maya lived in cardigans and long sleeves. She told people she was cold-blooded, that she preferred layers. Some believed her. Most just looked confused but didn't push. Her morning jog stopped. The park where she used to run was full of people in athletic tanks and sports bras, and the thought of being among them in her long sleeves made her chest tight with anxiety. Instead, she started working out at home with the curtains drawn, following videos on her laptop. Social invitations dried up. At first, friends called constantly, wanting to meet for lunch or coffee or drinks. Maya made excuses. She was tired. She had work. She wasn't feeling well. After a while, the calls became less frequent. Then they stopped altogether. She told herself she preferred it this way. Being alone meant no awkward questions, no pitying looks, no having to watch people try not to stare. Her apartment became her sanctuary and her prison. After work, she'd come straight home, change into old comfortable clothes, and lose herself in design projects. The digital world was safe. Behind her computer screen, she could be anyone. No one could see her scars. No one could judge her. Her cat Milo became her closest companion. He didn't care about scars. He just wanted food and attention and a warm lap to sleep on. Sometimes Maya talked to him, telling him about her day, about the loneliness that sat heavy in her chest, about how exhausting it was to pretend everything was fine. 6 months passed this way. Maya went to work, came home, and existed in the space between. She was functional. She paid her bills and showed up to meetings and produced good work. But she wasn't living. Not really. She was just going through the motions, waiting for each day to end. Her mother called every Sunday. "Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping? Have you talked to your friends?" "I'm fine, Mom. Everything's fine." "You don't sound fine. What do you want me to say? That I'm damaged? That I'm broken? That every time I look in the mirror I want to scream?" The line went quiet. Then her mother's voice, soft and sad. "Oh, honey." Maya immediately felt guilty. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap. I'm just tired. I know. I know you are." After they hung up, Maya stood in front of her bathroom mirror. Slowly, carefully, she pulled down the neck of her shirt. The scars stared back at her, red and angry even after all this time. She traced the lines with her finger, following the pattern of damage across her skin. This was her now. This was her forever. She pulled her shirt back up and turned away from the mirror. Tomorrow she'd go to work again. She'd wear long sleeves again. She'd smile when appropriate and answer when spoken to and pretend that she was okay. Because what else could she do? The accident had taken more than her unblemished skin. It had taken her confidence, her spontaneity, her ability to move through the world without constant self-consciousness. She was 24 years old and felt ancient, carrying the weight of something she hadn't asked for and couldn't change. That night, lying in bed with Milo purring beside her, Maya made a decision. This was her life now. She needed to accept it. The girl she used to be was gone, burned away in that intersection. What remained was this careful, guarded version, and maybe that was okay. Maybe this was enough. She didn't know yet that everything was about to change. She didn't know that in just a few days, someone would move into the apartment next door who would see her differently, who would help her see herself differently. But that night she just knew she was tired. Tired of hiding, tired of being afraid, tired of feeling like a ghost in her own life. She closed her eyes and hoped tomorrow would be easier. It never was, but she always hoped anyway. The moving truck arrived on a Saturday morning, its beeping waking Maya from a restless sleep. She groaned and pulled the pillow over her head, but the sounds continued. Footsteps in the hallway, voices giving directions, the thud of furniture being carried. Someone was moving into the apartment next door. The unit had been empty for 2 months, and Maya had gotten used to the silence. She liked not having to worry about neighbors hearing her cry or noticing when she didn't leave her apartment for days at a time. By noon, curiosity got the better of her. She peeked through her peephole and caught a glimpse of a guy carrying boxes. He looked about her age, maybe a bit older, with dark hair and an easy way of moving. He was talking to the movers, laughing about something. The sound felt foreign in the usually quiet hallway. Maya stepped back from the door and returned to her couch. New neighbor? That meant potential awkward hallway encounters. Small talk. The inevitable moment when he'd notice her scars and his face would change. She decided right then to avoid him as much as possible. But Daniel, as she'd learned his name was, made avoidance difficult. The first encounter happened 3 days later. Maya was coming home from work, arms full of grocery bags, struggling with her keys. Her scarred arm ached from carrying the weight, but she'd refused to make 2 trips. Fewer trips meant less time in the hallway, less chance of running into anyone. Need help with that? Maya jumped, nearly dropping everything. Daniel stood a few feet away, key in hand, friendly smile on his face. He must have come up the stairs behind her. "No, I'm fine." The words came out automatically, sharper than necessary. "You sure? Looks like you've got your hands full." "I said I'm fine." The smile faltered just slightly. "Okay, just offering." He unlocked his door and disappeared inside, leaving Maya feeling guilty and relieved in equal measure. She fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking now, and finally got inside her own apartment. She set the bags down and leaned against the door, closing her eyes. Why did she always have to be so defensive? He was just trying to be nice. But nice led to conversations, and conversations led to getting closer. And getting closer meant eventually he'd see. Better to keep distance from the start. For the next week, Maya perfected the art of avoiding her neighbor. She learned his schedule. He left around 9 in the morning, usually came back around 6. If she heard his door, she waited. She timed her exits carefully. Once, she stood with her hand on her doorknob for 5 full minutes, listening to him walk down the hall, waiting for the building's front door to close before she emerged. But Daniel seemed to be everywhere. One morning, she found a coffee cup sitting on the floor outside her door. It was still warm with a small note. "Good morning, neighbor. Thought you might need this. Daniel 3B. Maya stared at it for a long moment. It was a kind gesture. Unnecessary but kind. She took the coffee inside and after a moment's hesitation, drank it. It was good. Perfect amount of cream, 1 sugar. She wondered how he'd guessed. The next morning, there was another coffee. And the next. Always with a small note. Happy Wednesday. Hope you have a great day. Friday, finally. Maya never thanked him. Never acknowledged the gesture. But she started looking forward to those coffee cups. To those little notes that required nothing from her except to receive them. 2 weeks after he moved in, Maya's workday from home was interrupted by a knock on her door. She froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, she saw Daniel holding a container. She considered not answering. But he knocked again, patient and persistent. "I know you're home," he called through the door. "I can hear your music," Maya cursed under her breath. She'd been playing music while working. Stupid. She checked her reflection quickly, making sure her sleeves were down, her collar high. Then she opened the door just a crack. "Hi," Daniel said, holding up the container. "My mom sent me way too much food. I thought maybe you'd want some. It's lasagna. I don't need your food." "Okay, but it's really good lasagna. My mom's Italian." "Well, half Italian, the important half." He grinned, and there was something so genuine about it that Maya's defenses wavered. "Why are you doing this?" The question seemed to surprise him. "Doing what?" "The coffee, the food." "The neighbor thing," he shrugged. "I don't know. Being neighborly. Is that weird? I thought that's what people did. People don't do that anymore." "Well, maybe they should." He held out the container again. "Come on. If you hate it, you can throw it away and I'll never bother you again." Maya found herself taking the container. It was warm in her hands and it smelled incredible. "Thanks," she mumbled. "You're welcome, neighbor." He started to walk away, then turned back. "I'm Daniel, by the way. In case you didn't get that from the notes, Maya. Nice to officially meet you, Maya from 3A. He smiled again and disappeared into his apartment. That night, Maya ate the lasagna. He was right. It was really good. She found herself thinking about her neighbor while she ate. Why was he being so nice? What did he want? People were never nice without wanting something. But days passed and Daniel didn't ask for anything. The coffee kept appearing. Sometimes there was food. Once, a book he thought she might like based on absolutely no information about her interests. It was actually a book she'd been meaning to read. Maya remained polite but distant. She said thank you through the door. She never invited him in. She kept her sleeves down and her guard up. Then summer hit with a vengeance. The building's air conditioning was old and unreliable, and when it broke during a heat wave, Maya's apartment became unbearable. She tried everything. Fans didn't help. Opening windows just let in more hot air. By the 3rd day, she was desperate. She stood in front of her mirror looking at her long-sleeved shirt. It was the lightest one she owned, but in this heat it felt like a prison. Sweat rolled down her back. She was dizzy and nauseous and so hot. For one wild moment, she considered rolling up her sleeves, just here in her apartment where no one could see, but what if someone knocked? What if she had to go get water or something? No. Better to suffer. By evening, she admitted defeat. She couldn't fix the air conditioner herself. The landlord wouldn't come until morning. She needed help. She stood outside Daniel's door for a full minute before knocking. Maybe he wouldn't answer. Maybe he wasn't home. Maybe she could just forget this whole thing. The door opened. Daniel stood there in shorts and a t-shirt looking concerned. "Maya, you okay? You look really pale. My AC is broken." I know you work with, like, electronics or something. I thought maybe. She swayed slightly. Whoa. Hey. Daniel reached out to steady her, and Maya jerked back instinctively. He pulled his hand back immediately. Sorry, come on, let's get you inside where it's cool. His apartment was blessedly cold. Maya almost cried with relief as the air hit her skin. Daniel got her a glass of ice water and made her sit on his couch. Drink that slowly. When's the last time you ate? I don't know, lunch? That's not good. Hang on. He disappeared into his kitchen and came back with crackers and cheese. Eat, then I'll go look at your AC. Maya did as she was told, too exhausted to argue. Her head was pounding. The cold air felt like heaven. Daniel grabbed his toolbox and disappeared into her apartment. She could hear him moving around, talking to himself as he worked. Maya leaned back on his couch and closed her eyes just for a moment. She woke up to Daniel gently shaking her shoulder. Hey, good news and bad news. Good news is I figured out what's wrong. Bad news is I can't fix it. You need a new part. But you can stay here tonight if you want. I've got a spare bedroom. I can't do that. Sure you can. It's like 100 degrees in your place. You'll be miserable all night. I don't want to impose. Oh, you're not imposing. I'm offering. He sat down in the chair across from her. Look, I get that you're the private type. That's cool. But it's dangerous to sleep in that heat. Just take the spare room. I work weird hours anyway. I'll probably be up editing photos half the night. You won't even know I'm here, Maya wanted to argue. But the thought of going back to her sweltering apartment made her want to cry. Okay, thank you. No problem. Want more water? She nodded. And while he was in the kitchen, she looked around his apartment. It was bigger than hers, or maybe just less cluttered. What caught her attention were the photos on the walls. Black and white portraits, all of different people. Each one was beautiful in its own way. Not the glossy magazine kind of beautiful, but real. Honest. Daniel came back with the water. You like photography? These are yours? Yeah, it's what I do. I'm a photographer. They're really good. Thanks. I focus on people mostly. I think faces tell the best stories. Maya looked at one photo in particular. An elderly woman, her face lined with wrinkles but her eyes bright with laughter. She looks happy. She was. That's Mrs. Chen from my old building. She was 93 when I took that. Told me every wrinkle was a memory and she wouldn't trade them for anything. Something about that struck Maya. Every mark a memory. She'd never thought of it that way. To her, her scars were just damage. Evidence of something she wanted to forget. The spare room is down the hall, Daniel said. There's fresh sheets and everything. Bathroom is next to it. Make yourself at home. Maya stood, still feeling a bit shaky. Daniel, thank you. Really? Anytime, neighbor. That night, lying in a strange bed in a stranger's apartment, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in months. Safe. Not comfortable exactly, not relaxed, but safe. And that was something. Maya woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of birds outside the window. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. Daniel's apartment. The broken AC. The fact that she'd spent the night at a virtual stranger's place. She sat up quickly, heart racing. What time was it? She grabbed her phone. 7:30. She needed to get ready for work. When she emerged from the bedroom, Daniel was in the kitchen making breakfast. He looked up and smiled. Morning. How'd you sleep? Fine, good, thank you. I should go. Your AC is still broken. Landlord won't be there until later today. At least have some breakfast first. Maya hesitated. She was hungry. And the apartment was cool. And something about the normalcy of the scene made her want to stay. Okay, just quickly. They ate together at his small kitchen table. Scrambled eggs and toast. Simple but good. Daniel talked easily about random things. A documentary he'd watched. A funny thing his mom said on the phone. He didn't ask Maya personal questions or expect her to contribute much to the conversation. It was comfortable in a way she hadn't experienced in months. As she reached for her coffee, the sleeve of her pajama shirt rode up slightly. Just an inch. But enough. Maya saw Daniel's eyes flick to her arm, saw the moment he noticed. She yanked her sleeve down immediately, her face burning. The comfortable moment shattered like glass. I should go. She stood so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Maya, wait. Thanks for letting me stay. I appreciate it. She was already heading for the door. Maya, please. Something in his voice made her stop. Not pity, not curiosity. Just honesty. Can we talk for a second? There's nothing to talk about. I think there is. Maya stood with her hand on the doorknob, her back to him. Every instinct told her to leave. Run. Hide. But something kept her there. I saw your scars, Daniel said quietly, and I'm guessing that's why you're about to bolt out of here. But Maya, I don't care. Not in a bad way. I just mean it doesn't change anything. You don't understand. Maybe not. But I'd like to, if you'd let me. Maya's throat felt tight. Why? Why do you care? Because you're interesting. Because you're my neighbor and you seem like you could use a friend. Because for the past 3 weeks you've been avoiding me like I'm contagious. And I can't figure out what I did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Then talk to me, please. Maya slowly turned around. Daniel was still sitting at the table, looking at her with those honest eyes. No pity, no disgust, just patience. She sat back down. Her hands shook as she wrapped them around her coffee mug. There was an accident, she started, her voice barely above a whisper, 6 months ago. A car accident. The other driver was texting. He ran a red light and hit my car. There was a fire. She didn't look at him as she talked. Couldn't. She stared at her coffee, at the dark liquid reflecting the kitchen light. I got burned. Pretty badly. The doctors did what they could, but the scars are permanent. They're on my arm, my shoulder, my neck. They're ugly. And everyone stares. Everyone has opinions about how I should feel or what I should do or how brave I am. But I don't feel brave. I feel ruined. The words poured out, months of silence breaking like a dam. She told him about the hospital, about the surgeries, about the physical therapy that hurt so much she wanted to scream, about coming back to work and seeing the pity in everyone's eyes, about losing her friends because she pushed them away, about hiding in her apartment because the world outside felt hostile and judgmental. When she finally looked up, Daniel's expression was thoughtful. Not pitying, not uncomfortable, just listening. That sounds really hard, he said simply. It is. Thank you for telling me. Maya wiped at her eyes, surprised to find them wet. I don't usually talk about it, I know, and I appreciate that you did. He paused, then seemed to make a decision. Can I show you something? He stood up and before Maya could respond, rolled up his left pant leg. Maya stared. From the knee down, Daniel's leg was prosthetic, a sleek mechanical limb where flesh and bone should have been. I was 12, Daniel said, sitting back down. Bone cancer. They tried everything else first, but eventually this was the only option. Lose the leg or lose my life. Daniel, it's okay. It was a long time ago. But I remember what it felt like right after. How I didn't want anyone to see. How I thought my life was over. How I was convinced no one would ever see me as normal again. How did you get past it? Honestly? I didn't for a while. I was angry, depressed. I pushed everyone away. Sound familiar? He smiled gently. But eventually I realized that hiding didn't make it go away. It just made me smaller. The prosthetic was part of my life now. I could either let it define me or I could define myself despite it. Maya looked at the prosthetic, then at Daniel's face. People must stare, sometimes. Mostly kids. They're just curious. Adults usually try not to, but you can tell they want to. For a while it bothered me. Now I barely notice. How? Practice, I guess. And perspective. This leg is a reminder that I survived. That I got a second chance. The cancer could have killed me, but it didn't. So yeah, I have a prosthetic, but I also have a life. They sat in silence for a moment. Maya felt something shifting inside her. Not fixed, not healed, but maybe the tiniest bit less broken. Can I see? Daniel asked gently. Your scars? You don't have to. But I promise I won't judge. I promise I won't look at you differently. Maya's first instinct was to say no, to pull her sleeves down tighter, to run back to her apartment and lock the door. But something about Daniel's openness, his vulnerability, made her want to be brave. Slowly, hands shaking, she rolled up her left sleeve. The scars were there in all their angry, textured reality. Red and pink and white, overlapping in patterns that looked like abstract art she never wanted to create. The skin was tight and shiny in places, rough in others. Daniel looked. Really looked. Not a quick glance. Not a polite pretend not to notice. He studied her arm like he studied the faces in his photographs. That must have been incredibly painful, he said quietly. It was. And it must be incredibly painful now, not physically. but carrying this around, hiding it, being afraid of what people will think. Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. I feel like a monster. You're not a monster. You're a person who went through something terrible and survived it. But I'm not the same person I was before. Of course not. How could you be? But Maya, that doesn't mean you're less. You're just different. And different isn't bad. Everyone treats me differently now. Because you're treating yourself differently. You're hiding. You're ashamed. People pick up on that. They don't know how to act because you've made the scars this huge thing that can't be acknowledged or discussed. Maya pulled her sleeve back down, but not frantically this time, just carefully. I don't know how to not make it a huge thing. Practice. Same as me, it takes time. But you start by being honest, by not hiding, by letting the people who care about you actually see you. What if they reject me? Then they're not worth your time. Maya, real friends, real people who matter, they're not going to care about your scars. They're going to care about you? You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's terrifying. But it's better than hiding forever. Trust me on that. Maya looked at Daniel, really looked at him. This man who had shown her such kindness without expecting anything in return. Who had shared his own vulnerability to make her feel less alone. Who was offering her something she'd forgotten existed. Hope. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why photography? What made you want to take pictures of people? Daniel smiled. Because everyone has a story. Every face, every body tells a story about where they've been and what they've survived. I lost my leg, but I gained this perspective. I see beauty in things other people might overlook. Wrinkles, scars, imperfections, they're not flaws. They're proof of life lived. You really believe that? I do, and I wish you could see yourself the way I see you. How's that? As someone strong, someone who survived, someone whose scars tell a story about resilience, not ruin. Maya felt something crack open inside her chest, not breaking. Opening, like a window letting in light after being shuttered for too long. I don't know if I can believe that yet, she said honestly. That's okay. You don't have to believe it today. But maybe someday. They talked for another hour, about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about his photography work, about the people he'd met and photographed. Maya found herself talking about her design work, about projects she'd loved before the accident. She told him about Milo, her cat, about the park she used to run in. Small pieces of her old life that she'd thought were gone forever. When she finally left to get ready for work, the AC part had been delivered. The landlord was already installing it. Maya thanked Daniel one more time. Anytime, he said. And Maya? I meant what I said. About being friends. My door is always open if you need anything, even just someone to talk to. Thank you, Daniel, for everything. That day at work, Maya found herself thinking about her conversation with Daniel, about his prosthetic leg, and how he'd turned something that could have destroyed him into something that gave him perspective. About his photos and how he saw beauty in imperfection. She looked down at her covered arm. The scars were still there, hidden under fabric. But for the first time in months, she wondered what might happen if she stopped hiding them. If she let people see. The thought terrified her, but it also thrilled her. Just a little. Just enough. That evening, she knocked on Daniel's door. When he answered, she held out a container. What's this? He asked. Cookies. I made them. It's not lasagna, but I thought maybe I should return the favor. Daniel's face lit up. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Also, I was wondering, those photos in your apartment, do you do that professionally? Like, do people hire you? Sometimes. Why? Maya took a deep breath. I was thinking maybe someday when I'm ready, you could photograph me, with the scars showing. I don't know if I'm ready now, but maybe eventually. Daniel's smile was gentle and understanding. Whenever you're ready, Maya, no pressure, no rush. Just whenever you're ready. Maya nodded, feeling lighter than she had in months. She wasn't fixed. She wasn't healed, but she had taken one small step towards something that felt like hope. And right now, that was enough. 3 weeks passed after that morning in Daniel's apartment. 3 weeks of small changes that felt like earthquakes to Maya. She didn't suddenly transform into a confident woman who paraded her scars around. That would have been a lie. But she started taking smaller steps towards something that felt like living again. The coffee still appeared outside her door most mornings, and now Maya knocked on Daniel's door sometimes to say thank you in person. They'd talk for a few minutes about nothing important. The weather, A funny video one of them had seen. These little conversations became the highlight of Maya's day. One evening, Daniel invited her over for dinner. "Nothing fancy," he said. "Just pasta. But I make really good pasta and eating alone is depressing." Maya almost said no. Old habits. But she thought about what Daniel had said about hiding making her smaller. So she said yes, that became a regular thing. Once or twice a week, they'd have dinner together. Sometimes at his place, sometimes at hers. Daniel taught her some basic photography concepts. Maya showed him design tricks on her computer. They watched movies and argued about which ones were good. They talked about their families, their childhoods, their dreams. Maya was still wearing long sleeves, still covering up. But with Daniel, she didn't feel like she had to apologize for it. He never pushed her, never made her feel ashamed. He just accepted where she was. "You mentioned wanting me to photograph you someday," Daniel said one evening as they were cleaning up after dinner. "Have you thought more about that?" Maya's stomach flipped. She had thought about it constantly. The idea terrified her and intrigued her in equal measure. "Maybe," she said carefully. "What would it involve?" "Whatever you want it to involve. We could start simple. Just you, in whatever you're comfortable wearing. Or we could go bigger. Show the scars. Make them part of the story. It's your choice. Would other people see the photos? Only if you wanted them to. This would be for you, to help you see yourself differently. Anything else would be your decision." Maya thought about it for several days. Finally, one Saturday afternoon, she knocked on Daniel's door. "I want to do it." "The photos. But I need you to promise me something." "What's that?" "If they turn out terrible, if I look like a monster, you have to tell me. Don't try to make me feel better. Just be honest." Daniel looked at her seriously. "Maya, I can promise you honesty, but I can also promise you that you won't look like a monster, because that's not what you are." They set up in his apartment the following weekend. Daniel had professional lighting equipment, cameras, backdrops. Seeing it all made Maya's anxiety spike. "We don't have to use any of this," Daniel said, noticing her expression. "We can start simple. Natural light. Sit by the window. We'll just try some things and see what feels right." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "What are you wearing?" Daniel asked. Maya looked down at her long-sleeved shirt. "This? Is that what you want to wear?" "I don't know. What would you wear if you weren't worried about hiding anything?" Maya thought about her closet, about all the sundresses and tank tops pushed to the back. Tags still on some of them. Bought before the accident. Something sleeveless, probably. It's summer. Then wear that. Or don't, whatever feels right. But Maya, this is your session. Your story. Don't let fear make your choices. Maya went back to her apartment and stared at her closet for 15 minutes. Finally, she pulled out a simple sleeveless dress, blue. It used to be her favorite. She held it up to herself in the mirror. The scars would be completely visible in this dress. Her arm, her shoulder, the edge of her neck. Everything she'd been hiding for 8 months would be on display. Her hands shook as she put it on. The fabric felt strange against her scarred skin. She'd forgotten what it felt like to have air on her arms. She looked at herself in the mirror. The scars were angry and obvious, but the dress was beautiful. And underneath the scars, she could still see traces of the girl she used to be. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. When she walked back into Daniel's apartment, he was setting up his camera by the window. He looked up and his face broke into a smile. "You look beautiful. The scars are part of you, and you look beautiful." Maya sat by the window where Daniel directed her. Natural light poured in, warm and soft. Daniel started taking pictures, talking to her the whole time. "Not about the scars. About everything else. Tell me about your cat," he said. "Milo? He's a menace. He knocks things off my counters for fun. What's the best thing about him? He doesn't care what I look like. He just wants food and cuddles. Click. Click." Daniel kept shooting, kept asking questions. About her favorite food. Her worst job. The place she most wanted to visit. Maya forgot about the camera after a while. Forgot about her exposed scars. She was just talking to her friend. "Can you look out the window for me?" Daniel asked. Just naturally. Like you're watching something interesting outside. Maya turned her head, looking out at the street below. She saw a kid on a bike, an elderly couple walking their dog. Normal life happening outside while she sat here in this room doing this terrifying, brave thing. "Perfect," Daniel murmured. "Stay just like that." After an hour, Daniel lowered his camera. "I think we got some good ones. Want to see?" Maya's heart pounded. Okay. Daniel pulled up the photos on his laptop. Maya steeled herself for the worst, but what she saw took her breath away. The woman in the photos was her, but not the monster she saw in her own mirror. The light caught her features gently. Yes, the scars were visible. They were right there, undeniable. But they weren't the only thing you saw. You saw her eyes, thoughtful and sad, but also hopeful. You saw the curve of her neck, the set of her shoulders. You saw a person who had been through something difficult and was still here. The scars tell a story, Daniel said quietly, standing beside her. But they're not the whole story. Look at this one. He pulled up a photo where Maya was looking out the window. The scars were clearly visible on her arm and shoulder, but the expression on her face was contemplative, peaceful even. This is my favorite, Daniel said, because you look like you're looking toward something. Not away from something, toward. Maya felt tears welling up. I don't look horrible. No, you look human. You look real. You look like someone who survived. They went through all the photos together. Daniel explained what he'd been thinking with each shot. The lighting choices, the angles, how he'd tried to capture not just Maya's appearance but her essence. There's something I haven't shown you yet, Daniel said. It's a project I've been working on for a few years. I want to show you, but only if you're comfortable. He pulled up a folder on his computer labeled Stories in Skin. Inside were dozens of portraits. Each one showed a person with some kind of visible difference. A burn survivor like Maya, someone with a birthmark covering half their face, an amputee, a person with severe acne scars, a veteran with facial injuries. Every photo was stunning, not in spite of these differences, but somehow incorporating them into the beauty of the image. This is what I do, Daniel explained. I photograph people who society tells them should hide, and I try to show them and everyone else that they're worthy of being seen. These are incredible. Everyone has a story. These are just the people whose stories are written on their skin. He paused. Maya, I'd love to include your photos in this project, but only if you want. I would never share them without your permission. Maya looked at the photos again, hers and the others in the project. All these people who had been brave enough to be photographed, to let their stories be seen. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. That night, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the photos. She asked Daniel to send her favorites to her phone, and she looked at them over and over, trying to reconcile the person in those images with how she felt inside. The woman in the photos looked strong. Vulnerable, yes. Scarred, absolutely. But strong. She started wearing short sleeves at home, just around her apartment where only Milo could see. It felt strange at first, wrong. But gradually it started to feel normal, like reclaiming a piece of herself she'd given up. 2 weeks later, Maya wore a short-sleeved shirt to her therapy session. She'd been seeing a therapist since the accident, but she'd always been covered up. Her therapist's eyes widened slightly when Maya walked in, but she didn't say anything. I'm trying something new, Maya said, sitting down. I can see that. How does it feel? Terrifying, but also kind of freeing. They talked about the photos, about Daniel, about the slow process of accepting what had happened and who she was now. The therapist asked good questions, made her think. You've spent 8 months hiding, the therapist said. What are you hoping to find by not hiding anymore? Maya thought about it. Myself, I guess. The person I was before is gone. But maybe there's a new person I can be. Someone who's not defined by what happened, but not pretending it didn't happen either. That sounds like wisdom. Maya laughed. It sounds like something Daniel would say. This Daniel seems important to you. He is. He's become my best friend. Maybe my only friend right now. Do you have feelings for him? The question caught Maya off guard. Did she? She thought about Daniel's smile, about how safe she felt around him, about how he looked at her like she was whole instead of broken. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe, but I'm not ready for that. I'm barely ready to be friends with myself again. The therapist smiled. That's very self-aware. There's no rush. Take your time figuring out what you want and who you want to be. That evening, Maya knocked on Daniel's door with a container of the cookies she'd made. He opened it with his usual smile, wearing paint-splattered jeans and an old t-shirt. More cookies? You're spoiling me. I wanted to talk to you about something. Come in. Want some tea? They sat on his balcony, mugs of tea warming their hands as the sun set. Maya took a deep breath. I've been thinking about your project. Stories in Skin, I want to be part of it. Daniel's face lit up. Really? Really? I think I'm ready. Or at least I'm ready to try being ready. Maya, that's amazing. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Because you were right. Hiding is making me smaller. And I'm tired of being small. I want to be big again. I want to take up space. I want my story to matter. Daniel reached over and squeezed her hand. The gesture was simple but meant everything. Your story already matters. But I'm honored you want to share it. There's something else, Maya said. I think I want to start going out more. Doing things. Without always covering up. And I was hoping maybe you'd come with me sometimes. Like moral support. I'd love that. Where do you want to start? Small. Maybe just coffee at that place on the corner. Then we can work up to bigger things. Coffee on the corner sounds perfect. They sat in comfortable silence watching the city lights come on one by one. Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement about the future. Fear, yes. Uncertainty, absolutely. But also possibility. Daniel, she said softly, yeah? Thank you. For everything. For not giving up on me when I was pushing everyone away. For showing me your prosthetic. For the photos. For all of it. You don't have to thank me. That's what friends do. Friends. The word felt both perfect and somehow insufficient. But Maya didn't examine that feeling too closely. Not yet. For now she was just grateful. For Daniel. For this moment. For the tiny spark of hope that was slowly growing into something bigger. The coffee shop on the corner became Maya's testing ground. She and Daniel went 3 times before she worked up the courage to wear short sleeves. The 4th time she did it. She walked in wearing a simple t-shirt, her scars completely visible, and felt every eye in the room turn toward her. Most of the looks were brief. Curious glances, nothing more. But to Maya, each one felt like a spotlight. Daniel noticed her discomfort. You're doing great, he whispered as they waited in line. Breathe. You belong here just as much as anyone else. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, stared openly from a nearby table. Her mother quickly shushed her, but the girl's curiosity was innocent. Maya remembered what Daniel had said about kids. They weren't judging. They were just curious. Maya surprised herself by smiling at the little girl. The girl smiled back, gap-toothed and sweet. They got their coffee and sat by the window. Daniel talked about a new project he was working on, about wanting to expand his photography into teaching workshops. Maya found herself relaxing, forgetting about her exposed scars. You know what I just realized? She said, interrupting his story. What? I've been sitting here for 20 minutes and I haven't thought about covering up once. I was just listening to you talk. Daniel's smile was warm. That's progress, it is, isn't it? Over the next few weeks, Maya pushed herself further. She went to the grocery store in a sleeveless top. She took a walk in the park she used to jog in, wearing shorts and a tank top. Each time was easier than the last. Not everyone was kind. She got stares. Once, a teenager made a comment loud enough for her to hear. Dude, did you see that girl's arm? That's gnarly. Maya's first instinct was to run, but Daniel, walking beside her, just kept talking like nothing had happened. And after a moment, Maya did too, because one ignorant comment didn't define her experience. It was just noise. I'm proud of you, Daniel said later. That took guts. I wanted to cry. But you didn't, you kept walking. That's what matters. Maya started reconnecting with old friends, slowly at first. She texted her friend Rachel, who she'd been avoiding for months. Hey, I know I've been MIA, want to grab lunch? Rachel responded immediately. Yes, I've missed you so much. They met at a restaurant the following week. Maya wore a short-sleeved dress. When Rachel saw her, she hugged Maya tight and didn't let go for a long moment. I've been so worried about you, Rachel said. I know. I'm sorry I pushed you away. Don't apologize. I get it, but Maya, I'm so glad you're back. And your scars, they don't change anything. You're still you. I'm not the same person I was. No one is. We all change. But the things I love about you, those are still there. They talked for hours. Really talked. Maya told Rachel everything. About the accident, about the darkness that followed. About Daniel and the photos and the slow journey back to herself. Rachel listened without judgment, without pity. Just love. This Daniel guy sounds pretty great, Rachel said with a knowing smile. He's my friend. Uh-huh. And nothing. He's been amazing, but I'm not thinking about that right now. Why not? Because I'm still figuring out who I am. I can't be in a relationship when I'm barely holding myself together. Rachel reached across the table and took Maya's hand. You're not barely holding yourself together. Look at you. You're wearing a sleeveless dress in public. You're having lunch with me. You're living your life again. Give yourself some credit. Maybe Rachel was right. Maya had been so focused on how far she still had to go that she hadn't noticed how far she'd already come. That night, Maya looked at herself in the mirror. Really looked. Not at the scars specifically, but at herself as a whole person. She saw a woman who had survived something terrible. A woman who was learning to be brave. A woman who was slowly, painfully, beautifully putting herself back together. The scars were part of her story now. They always would be, but they didn't have to be the whole story. Daniel's photography exhibit opened on a warm Saturday in late summer. The gallery was small but well lit, and people were already arriving when Maya got there. She wore a sleeveless dress, the same blue one from the photo session. Her hands shook as she walked through the door. Daniel saw her immediately and came over. He looked nervous too, which somehow made Maya feel better. "You came," he said. "Of course I came. My photos are in here somewhere, aren't they?" "They are. But if you change your mind about showing them, just say the word. We can take them down. I won't change my mind. Where are they?" Daniel led her through the gallery. The walls were covered with portraits from his Stories in Skin project. Each one more beautiful than the last. People with visible differences, photographed with such care and respect that you couldn't help but see their humanity first. Then Maya saw her own portrait. It was the one where she was looking out the window. The light caught her profile perfectly. The scars on her arm and shoulder were clearly visible, textured and real. But what struck Maya was her expression. She looked peaceful, contemplative, like someone who had found something important. Below the photo was a small placard with text. Daniel must have written it. Maya, age 24, car accident survivor. I used to think my scars made me invisible. Now I'm learning they make me unforgettable. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She didn't remember saying those exact words, but they felt true. "What do you think?" Daniel asked nervously. "It's perfect. I'm perfect. Or not perfect, but real. Does that make sense?" Perfect sense. People started gathering around Maya's portrait. She heard their whispered comments. Most were kind. "Wow, she's so brave." "Beautiful photo. Look at the light in this one." A woman around Maya's age stopped in front of the portrait. She stared at it for a long time, then rolled up her own sleeve. She had burn scars too, different from Maya's, but similar in their intensity. The woman looked at Maya. "Thank you," she said simply. Then she moved on. Maya's throat tightened. She hadn't thought about what her photos might mean to other people. She'd been so focused on her own journey that she'd forgotten photos could be bridges, connecting people who felt alone. Throughout the evening, more people approached Maya. Some shared their own stories. A man with a facial scar from a dog attack. A woman with a port wine-stained birthmark. A teenager with severe acne scars. They thanked her for being visible, for showing that scars didn't have to be hidden. Daniel watched from across the room, his eyes shining with something Maya couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe, or something deeper. When the gallery finally cleared out, just Maya and Daniel remained. They sat on the gallery floor, backs against the wall, exhausted but happy. That was overwhelming, Maya said. Good overwhelming or bad overwhelming?